You can't just sideline the entire department because of your ego. You have no authority here. This decision is final. Sir, I'm gonna have to ask you to hand over that tablet. What are you talking about? This is completely unacceptable. You think this is a joke? This company was built on integrity, something you clearly know nothing about. Get out. We need to push forward with this strategy if we want to.
This discussion is over. Your proposal is rejected.
Logics. If we look at the utilization metrics on this dashboard, it's clear where the inefficiencies lie. We project a 30%.
Your projections on that tablet are quite ambitious. Are you certain you can deliver these numbers?
They are accurate, sir. I stand by the data.
I'm afraid I have to ask you to leave the premises immediately, sir.
I'm not going anywhere until I get an explanation.
저는 이 계획에 동의할 수 없습니다. 우리는 더 나은 방향으로 나아가야 합니다.
Look at this data. We cannot ignore these numbers and expect a different result. This is exactly what I warned you about last quarter. I'm not signing these revised projections. They are fundamentally flawed, and I won't stake my reputation on them.
Grundlæggende dunvej to intuita. Ignore menting det tusind simultisigsa. At nå vi så tilbage til med dugsi og
The lobby of Havenport Systems smelled like lemon polish and cold coffee, the kind that sat too long under fluorescent lights. Nia Carter kept her shoulders square anyway, fingertips pressed to the edge of her tablet as the morning crowd funneled toward the elevators. A glass wall behind reception streamed the CEO's town hall live. Graham Whitlock stood on stage in a charcoal suit, smiling like a man who owned the air. His voice rolled through the speakers, slick and warm. "Excellence is non-negotiable," he said. "We don't lower standards for anyone." Nia's project badge flashed green at the turnstile. She'd been up since 4, rebuilding the procurement dashboard after the vendor breach everyone pretended wasn't their fault. Today she would present the fix, her fix, to the executive team. The elevator chimed. A pair of directors stepped aside, eyes sliding past her like she was invisible. Nia moved forward, and that's when Whitlock's face on the screen tightened, as if he'd spotted a stain. He leaned into the microphone, gaze scanning the room beyond the camera. "Security," he said, still smiling. "Could you escort the woman with the orange scarf away from the executive floor? We can't have staff wandering where they don't belong." For a second, the lobby went soundless inside Nia's skull. Her scarf, burnt orange, her mother's, felt suddenly too bright, too loud. She opened her mouth. No words came. Then a voice, sharp as broken glass, cut through the hush behind her. "That woman is presenting to the board in 5 minutes," someone said. Nia turned. A silver-haired man in a navy coat stood by the elevator bank, eyes fixed on the screen, board chair Malcolm Reed. And on the monitor, the CEO's smile began to crack. Nia Carter's pulse hit her throat the moment the CEO said it. On the lobby screen, Graham Whitlock kept his town hall smile. "Security," he said. "Escort the woman with the orange scarf away from the executive floor. Staff can't wander where they don't belong." The scarf, burnt orange, her mother's, suddenly felt like a target. The lobby froze. The receptionist's hands stopped. A few managers stared at their shoes. The security guard shifted, eyes landing on Nia like she'd tripped an alarm. Then a voice behind her cut through the hush. "That woman is presenting to the board in 5 minutes," the voice said. Nia turned. Board chair Malcolm Reed stood by the elevator bank, silver hair neat, gaze locked on the screen as if he could hold it accountable right in front. The guard straightened. "Sir, I don't," Malcolm said. "Unless you want to explain to the board why you detained our presenter." On the screen, Whitlock cleared his throat. "Ah, course. My mistake." His laugh floated out, bright and empty. "We're all about access and inclusion here." Nia heard the lie like static. Her supervisor, Evan Klein, hurried over with a grin that didn't touch his eyes. Nia, big day. He flashed the guard a look that said drop it and lowered his voice. Let's go. Nia forced air into her lungs. Mr. Reed, she said because manners were armor. Thank you. Malcolm's eyes found hers. You ready? I've been ready, Nia said. The elevator chimed. Malcolm stepped in first. Evan followed like he belonged. Nia walked in last, tablet clutched tight. As they rose, her phone buzzed. Elena, I saw the feed. Are you okay? Harold. Screenshot. Document. Unknown. Stay in your lane. Nia stared at the last one. No name. Just a shove. Evan laughed too loud. Town hall hiccup. Whitlock's intense about security. Secure from what? Nia asked. Evan's grin twitched. Distractions. Malcolm repeated it under his breath. Distractions. The doors opened to the executive floor. Thick carpet, quiet air. A wall of framed photos of Whitlock with politicians. Nia's reflection looked small, but her stomach burned with something stubborn. They reached the boardroom. Evan leaned close. Keep it technical. Don't make anything personal. Nia stopped. He tried to have me escorted out. Evan lifted both hands. I know. Just boards hate drama. They hate embarrassment, Nia said. There's a difference. Malcolm held the door. Present what you built, he said. The rest is on us. The phrase landed like a promise he might not be able to keep. Inside, polished wood and muted light. Four directors sat at the table. Graham Whitlock stood near the screen with the remote, smile reset. Malcolm, Whitlock said, smooth as poured oil. Glad you could make it. Malcolm didn't smile back. After your announcement downstairs, I wouldn't miss this. A silence stretched. Director Janine Wallace looked from Whitlock to Nia with an expression that wasn't pity. It was interest. Whitlock shrugged. Misunderstanding. Protocol. Janine's voice was flat. No. Nia connected her tablet. The screen filled with her dashboard. Procurement flows, vendor risk flags, live alerts. She stayed with facts because facts were safer than feelings. On January 12th, the vendor breach created a blind spot. Invoices slipped, auditors flagged us. The fix verifies vendor IDs, triggers anomaly alerts, and creates an immutable compliance log. A director leaned forward. Real time. Yes, Nia said and tapped. Charts updated. Alerts pulsed. The room's attention shifted, unwilling but real. Whitlock tried to take credit without taking responsibility. Strong work from the operations team, he said. Talent at every level. Nia kept her eyes on the data. I built it, she said. Evan coughed behind her. Janine's mouth curved slightly. You led it. I led it, Nia said. Elena Park validated data pipelines. Harold Simmons handled compliance requirements. The architecture is mine. Malcolm nodded once. Cost savings. Nia clicked. Projected savings. 3.8 million annually. Audit risk drops. And, she hesitated then pushed. It also shows where policy is being bypassed. Whitlock's smile tightened. We can address internal behavior later. Nia heard the warning. Not from you, not here. Malcolm's voice cooled the room. Now. Nia clicked again. A routing chart appeared. Timestamps, approval paths. Names were masked, but the header wasn't. CEO office. Executive override. Silence fell so hard she could hear the projector fan. Whitlock stepped closer, voice soft. Ms. Carter, that data isn't meant for this audience. Janine leaned back. This is exactly the audience. Malcolm's eyes stayed on the screen. How long has the override existed? Whitlock's jaw flexed. It's a tool. For flexibility. For you, Malcolm said. Nia's phone buzzed again. You think the board will save you? Her fingers went cold. She swallowed and kept her voice steady. The override correlates with the bypassing. It's why the breach went unnoticed. It's why the audit trail broke. Whitlock turned to her, and the politeness fell away. We'll finish this in my office. My presentation isn't finished, Nia said. It is, Whitlock replied. Malcolm spoke calm and sharp. Sit down, Graham. Whitlock didn't. The door clicked open behind Nia. A young HR manager stepped in, eyes wide, holding a printed complaint. Nia's name sat at the top in bold. I'm sorry, the woman whispered. This just came through. It's urgent. Nia looked down. Workplace misconduct. Unauthorized access. Threat to executive safety. Whitlock's smile returned, small, satisfied, as the paper shook in Nia's hands. The email arrived before Nia reached the parking garage. Subject: administrative leave. Effective immediately. She read it twice, then a third time, standing between concrete pillars that smelled of oil and damp. The words were careful, polished, neutral in the way a blade was neutral. Pending investigation. Standard procedure. No assumption of wrongdoing. Her badge access had already been disabled. The elevator refused her like a locked jaw. Nia laughed once, short, breathless. Of course, she murmured. Of course. Her phone rang. Evan. She let it ring until it stopped, then buzzed with a text. Evan, let's talk. This escalated fast. Escalated. As if it hadn't been waiting. By the time she drove home, 3 more messages stacked up. Legal. A calendar invite titled Initial Fact-Finding Interview. No agenda. No attachments. Just a time and a warning disguised as courtesy. Her apartment felt too quiet. Nia dropped her keys, leaned against the door, and pressed her forehead to the wood until the pulse in her temples slowed. Her phone buzzed again. Lena. I'm coming over, Elena said without preamble. Don't argue. I'm fine. Don't lie to me. 20 minutes later, Elena sat at Nia's kitchen table, laptop open, fingers flying. They filed this complaint within 8 minutes of your last slide, she said. 8. That's not panic. That's prep. Nia sank into the chair across from her. They're saying I accessed restricted systems. You did. Because it's your job. Elena's jaw tightened. And because the permissions existed. My permissions, Nia said. Yes. Which means. Elena turned the screen. An access log glowed. They're reframing authorized access as misconduct. Nia stared. Her name sat there clean and undeniable. Context stripped away like flesh from bone. Another knock. Softer this time. Harold stood in the doorway, cap in hand, eyes worried. I heard, he said. Everyone heard, Nia replied. Harold stepped in. I've seen this before. Elena didn't look up. Say that again. They isolate you, Harold said. Flood the record. Make it look like concern. Then call the outcome process. Nia swallowed. And the board. Harold hesitated. Divided. Her phone rang again. Evan persistent. She answered. Nia, Evan said quickly. Listen. Char's nervous. Legal's nervous. The board. Graham's nervous. Nia cut in. Oz. He feels blindsided. He humiliated me on a live stream. I know. But this isn't about feelings. Nia laughed again, sharper this time. It never is when it's mine. Evan lowered his voice. They're offering a path forward. Cooperation. A statement. Maybe an apology for tone. For tone, Nia repeated. Just acknowledge the misunderstanding. The misunderstanding where he ordered security to remove me. Don't frame it like that. Like what? Nia asked. Like the truth. Evan exhaled. If you push, you become the problem. I already am, Nia said. According to your file. Silence stretched. When Evan spoke again, his voice was careful. Think about your career. Nia hung up. Her hands shook. Elena slid a mug toward her. Drink. I don't want to cry, Nia said. Then don't, Elena replied. Be angry. Nia wrapped her hands around the mug anyway. I built something that saved them millions. And the moment it pointed up instead of down. They cut you, Harold finished. Another message pinged in. This one from an unfamiliar number. You should resign before this gets ugly. Nia stared at it, then turned the phone face down. I'm calling Malcolm, she said. The line connected on the second ring. I was hoping you would, Malcolm Reed said. They put me on leave. Yes. They filed a complaint. Yes. Nia closed her eyes. You knew. I suspected, Malcolm said. That's why I'm calling you a lawyer. I didn't ask. I'm not asking you to thank me. His voice softened. I'm asking you not to walk into that interview alone. Will the board protect me? Nia asked. Was honest, painful. Some of us will try. And the rest will choose stability. Nia opened her eyes. At whose expense? Another silence. He didn't answer. After the call, Elena squeezed her shoulder. We document everything, she said. Every email, every log, every inconsistency. And if it doesn't matter? Nia asked. Harold met her gaze. It matters. Even when they pretend it doesn't. That night sleep refused her. Every sound felt like surveillance. She replayed the lobby again and again. The scarf, the word security, the way the room had looked away. By morning, a draft statement waited in her inbox. Charse language. Bloodless. Ms. Carter acknowledges procedural overreach. Regrets any discomfort caused. She deleted it. Instead, she opened a new document. Named it Timeline. January 12th. The breach. The override. Town Hall. The complaint. 8 minutes later. File with teeth. Nia saved it, backed it up and sat back. They wanted her small, quiet, grateful. She wasn't resigning. She wasn't apologizing. And she wasn't done. The investigator introduced herself as objective before she introduced herself by name. Claire Donovan, she said, extending a hand across the conference table. Independent. Neutral. My job is to understand what happened. Her voice was smooth, practiced. The room was small, windowless, painted the kind of gray meant to disappear. A recorder sat between them like a third presence. Nia shook Claire's hand. I'm happy to help. Help, Nia thought. As if truth needed assistance to breathe. Claire smiled. This is informal. No need to be guarded. Nia noticed the way she'd already been categorized. Defensive until proven otherwise. Let's start with your access, Claire said. You entered systems outside your usual scope. My scope includes procurement risk mitigation, Nia replied. I built the dashboard. Claire nodded, jotting a note. But perception matters. Some executives felt alarmed. By data. By intent, Claire said gently. Nia leaned back. Whose intent? Claire didn't answer directly. Walk me through your decision-making process. Slowly. Nia did. She kept it clean. Technical. Every choice justified. When she mentioned the executive override, Claire's pen paused. Just a beat too long. That feature is sensitive, Claire said. Why include it in a board presentation? Because it explains the breach. Couldn't that have been addressed privately? With the person using it? Nia asked. Claire smiled, a soft curve meant to soothe. Let's avoid assumptions. Nia felt the heat crawl up her neck. The logs aren't assumptions. Still, Claire said, tone is important. Some felt your presentation was confrontational. Nia stared at her. I presented facts. And how you present facts, Claire replied, can be interpreted in many ways. There it is, Nia thought. The slide from evidence to emotion. From what happened to how it made them feel. Claire continued. Tell me about the town hall. The CEO singled me out and ordered security to remove me, Nia said. Those were his words. Claire asked. Paraphrased. Paraphrasing can introduce bias, Claire said, pen moving again. Nia's jaw tightened. There's a recording. We'll review it, Claire said, still writing. But I'm interested in how it made you feel. How I felt, Nia repeated. Yes, your emotional response. Nia laughed once. Humiliated, targeted, angry. Claire looked up. Anger can cloud judgment. Racism can cloud process, Nia shot back. Claire's smile thinned. Let's stick to behaviors. Fine, Nia said. He called security on me. On a live stream. For being where I was scheduled to be. Claire tilted her head. Do you believe race played a role? Nia met her gaze. I know it did. Claire wrote for a long moment. Then, belief noted. The interview lasted 90 minutes. Every answer felt weighed not for truth, but for liability. When it ended, Claire stood. Thank you for your cooperation, she said. Please don't discuss this with colleagues. Nia watched her leave, the door clicking shut like a verdict postponed. Outside, Elena waited, arms crossed. How bad? Lena asked. They're treating my certainty like a flaw, Nia said. Like conviction equals instability. Elena nodded grimly. Meanwhile, she turned her laptop. An internal email thread filled the screen. Dated the morning of the town hall. From G. Whitlock subject. Contingency if Carter escalates. HR should be prepared with a misconduct framework. We can't risk panic. Nia's stomach dropped. That's before. Before you spoke, Elena said. Before the board meeting. They planned it, Nia whispered. They prepared for you, Harold said from behind them. He looked tired, shoulders slumped. I warned compliance about the override last year. They told me not to create noise. Why are you helping me? Nia asked. Harold met her eyes. Because I didn't help the last one. The words settled heavy between them. That afternoon, Whitlock's influence made itself known. A company-wide memo praised psychological safety and warned against unauthorized access that could endanger leadership. Nia's name wasn't mentioned. It didn't need to be. Texts followed. You okay? Heard things. Maybe lay low. One message stood out. Janine Wallace. They're trying to make this about you. It isn't. Keep going. Nia called her. They're painting me as volatile, Nia said. Janine sighed. They always do. It's easier than admitting a system failed. Will the board act? We're arguing about risk, Janine said. Not morality. And which side is winning? Depends how much proof you have. That night, Nia added to her timeline. Emails, access logs, screenshots. She labeled each with dates and sources, building a spine of facts that didn't bend. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. You're talented. Don't ruin that by being difficult. Nia typed back before she could stop herself. Difficult for who? No reply. She set the phone down, hands trembling. The cost was becoming clear. Not just professionally but personally. Friends stopped asking how she was. Family calls turned cautious. You could find another job, her sister said gently. And let this follow me. Nia replied. Let them decide the story. Silence. By midnight, Nia sat alone, the city humming outside her window. She replayed Claire's questions, Whitlock's smile, the memo's careful language. Neutral voices, she realized, were never neutral. They tilted toward power like iron filings toward a magnet. She saved the timeline again. Backed it up twice. If they wanted to make her the story, she would make the pattern impossible to ignore. And this time she wouldn't be alone. The invitation arrived on thick cream cardstock, the kind that pretended money was taste. Havenport Systems. Leadership and legacy dinner, black tie optional. Discretion required. Nia read it twice, then laughed. Soft, incredulous. She wasn't invited, of course. The irony was sharper than any insult. While she sat at home, labeled a risk, Graham Whitlock would toast values over filet mignon. Janine called an hour later. You should know what's happening. I don't need the play-by-play, Nia said. You do, Janine replied. Because he's shaping the narrative in real time. The dinner unfolded at the Hawthorne Club, a private room wrapped in dark wood and quiet deals. Janine watched from her seat as Whitlock moved like a practiced host, handshakes confident, laughter timed. To resilience, he said, lifting his glass. And the people who protect it. Applause followed. Janine noticed which directors clapped hardest. Across the city, Nia sat on her couch, laptop open, timeline glowing. Her phone buzzed. Elena. He's pitching loyalty as stability, Elena said. Framing you as an anomaly. An outlier, Nia murmured. Easier to erase. A knock at the door cut the call short. Nia froze. The hour was late. Too late. She moved quietly, checking the peephole. No one stood there. When she opened the door, a flat brown envelope lay on the mat. Inside, printed reports. Executive override logs. Signatures. Her breath caught. This wasn't what Elena had. This was cleaner. Deeper. A sticky note clung to the top page. I'm sorry I waited. No name. Nia's hands shook as she sorted the pages. The override wasn't occasional. It was habitual. And it wasn't just Whitlock. 2 directors' assistants had routed approvals through his office. She snapped photos, uploaded scans, encrypted the files. At the Hawthorne Club, a donor leaned toward Whitlock. Rough week, he said, voice low. Whitlock smiled. A misunderstanding. Being handled. And the employee. A talented analyst, Whitlock said smoothly. But brilliance can come with volatility. Janine's fork paused midair. Volatility. The word landed where it was meant to. She caught Malcolm's eye across the table. His jaw tightened. Back at her apartment, Nia's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Careful. People are asking about you. Her chest tightened. They're digging, she whispered. Elena's voice came back on the line, strained. HR asked me about your temperament. My temperament, Nia echoed. Whether you're stable under pressure. Nia closed her eyes. I design systems that don't break under stress. Apparently that's not the metric. A second message pinged in, this one from her sister. Mom's worried. Please call her. The cost was rippling outward now, touching everything. At the dinner, Whitlock stood to speak again. Havenport's strength, he said, is trust. We trust our leaders to act in the company's best interest. Janine couldn't stay silent. Trust requires oversight, she said. A few heads turned. Whitlock's smile flickered. Of course. And oversight is strongest when unified. Translation. Dissent is disloyalty. Malcolm set his glass down. Unity without accountability is fragility, he said. A murmur moved through the room. Whitlock laughed lightly. Spoken like a philosopher. Like a chair, Malcolm replied. The moment passed, smoothed over with dessert. But Janine saw the calculation in Whitlock's eyes. He was counting votes. Later that night, Nia sat on her floor. Documents spread around her like a map of buried truth. The anonymous note weighed on her. Thank you, she said to the empty room. I won't waste it. Her phone rang. Malcolm. I heard about the dinner, Nia said. I heard about the package, Malcolm replied. She stiffened. How? Because someone tried to intercept it, he said. They failed. Nia's pulse spiked. What happens now? Now, Malcolm said. The board votes in 48 hours. To do what? To decide whether this becomes an internal issue, he said carefully, or something else. And if they choose internal, Malcolm exhaled. Then you have to decide how much you're willing to carry alone. Nia looked at the files. The signatures. Pattern. I'm tired of being alone, she said. After the call, she drafted an email. Not to press, not to social media. To a regulator's secure intake portal. She didn't send it yet. She saved it, attached the files, and closed her laptop. Outside, a car idled too long at the curb. Nia watched from behind the curtain, heart pounding, until it drove away. She sank onto the couch, exhaustion crashing in. The dinner plates would be cleared. The speeches forgotten. But the record, the real one, was growing teeth. And when it bit, it wouldn't let go. The boardroom door closed with a soft, final click. Nia wasn't inside it. She sat in a glass-walled conference room 3 floors below, phone face up on the table, watching the minutes crawl. The building hummed around her. Air vents, distant footsteps, the low murmur of decisions being made without her voice. "They won't let me in," she said to Elena over the phone. "They never do," Elena replied. "Power hates witnesses." On the executive floor, Graham Whitlock stood at the head of the table, jacket off, sleeves rolled like a man prepared to work hard for his own survival. "This has gone far enough," he said, palms open. "We're bleeding focus. Investors are jittery. Staff morale is suffering." Janine folded her hands. Because an employee exposed a systemic failure? Because she violated protocol? Whitlock shot back. And then personalized it. Malcolm Reed didn't look at Whitlock. He studied the printed timeline in front of him. Nia's work, annotated in neat ink. "The override existed for years," Malcolm said. "It bypassed controls. It correlates with the breach." Whitlock waved a hand. "Tools get misused. That doesn't justify grandstanding in front of the board." "Calling security on her was not a tool," Janine said. Whitlock's jaw tightened. "That was a misunderstanding." "It was a pattern," Malcolm said. "And now there's retaliation." Whitlock leaned forward. "Let's be pragmatic. We can offer Ms. Carter a generous severance. Non-disclosure. Everyone moves on." Silence followed, heavy, tempting. One director cleared his throat. "That would contain reputational risk." Janine's eyes flashed. "By burying it. By resolving it," the director replied. Malcolm looked around the table. "If we do this, we tell every employee exactly what happens when they point up." Whitlock smiled thinly. "We tell them we value order." Downstairs, Nia's phone buzzed. A text from Harold. "They're debating severance." Her chest tightened. "So that's it," she whispered. Elena's voice hardened. "Not yet." On cue, Elena forwarded an email chain to Malcolm's secure address. External timestamps. Independent verification. Harold's work. Upstairs, Malcolm's tablet chimed. He scanned the screen, then slid it across the table. "Independent audit confirmation," he said. "Override verified. Scope broader than disclosed." A murmur rippled. Whitlock's voice sharpened. "This is becoming a witch hunt." Janine leaned in. "Only if witches exist." Another director shifted, uneasy. "Regulators will ask why we didn't know." Malcolm met his gaze. "They'll ask why we didn't act." Whitlock straightened. "I've led this company for 12 years. Our growth speaks for itself." "At what cost?" Janine asked. Whitlock turned to her. "Are you accusing me?" "I'm accusing the system you benefited from," she replied. "And the way it treats people who challenge it." The room went quiet. The vote was called. Downstairs, Nia stared at the wall, counting breaths. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She didn't answer. A message followed. "Last chance. Accept the offer." Nia closed her eyes. Images flickered, the lobby, the scarf, the word security. The draft resignation HR had sent. The fear curling in her mother's voice. Her phone buzzed again. "Lena." "They're split," Elena said. "One swing vote." "Who?" "Director Paulson." The name landed like a weight. Paulson, risk-averse, image-conscious. Upstairs, Paulson spoke at last. "I'm concerned about precedent." "Me too," Malcolm said. "Precedent matters." Paulson rubbed his temples. "If we escalate, we invite scrutiny." Janine held his gaze. "If we don't, we invite liability." Whitlock watched Paulson carefully. "We can manage this internally." Malcolm's voice dropped. "We already failed to." Paulson exhaled. "What are our options?" "Independent investigation with full authority," Janine said. Or a settlement that looks like a payoff? Whitlock's smile returned. Words matter. So do records, Malcolm replied. The vote went up. 3 for containment. 3 for investigation. Paulson's hand hovered. Downstairs, Nia's phone buzzed. Malcolm's name flashed. She answered, breath caught. It's delayed, Malcolm said quietly. Delayed how? No decision today. Her shoulders sagged. So he wins. He buys time, Malcolm corrected. Not the same thing. Nia stared at the glass wall. Time is power. Yes, Malcolm said. Which is why you need to decide how you'll use yours. Upstairs, Whitlock rose. Then we're agreed, he said smoothly. We maintain internal review. Malcolm stood too. No, we postpone. That's not agreement. Whitlock's eyes hardened. Be careful, Malcolm. Careful is how we got here. The meeting adjourned in fragments. Half looks, whispered calculations. Whitlock left first, phone already at his ear. Downstairs, Nia sat alone now. Elena had hung up to avoid being seen. Harold's messages went quiet. She opened her laptop. The regulator's draft glowed on the screen. Attachments lined up like evidence waiting for air. She thought of the anonymous note. I'm sorry I waited. She wouldn't. Nia typed, fingers steady. I am submitting documentation regarding retaliation and systemic compliance failure. She attached the files. Read it once, then twice. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Evan. Please don't do this. She hit send. Upstairs, Whitlock's phone buzzed too. News traveling faster than loyalty. Nia closed the laptop, heart pounding. The board hadn't chosen her, so she had chosen herself. And once the truth was outside the room, it wouldn't wait for a vote. The confirmation email arrived at 6:14 a.m. Submission received. Reference ID 44721. Nia stared at the screen, the blue glow washing the room in something like dawn. She hadn't slept. Her hands felt detached, as if they belonged to someone braver. She forwarded the confirmation to Malcolm, Elena, and Harold. No commentary. As proof. By 8 a.m., Havenport's response was already circulating. Internal memo. From the office of the CEO, we remain committed to inclusion, transparency, and the highest ethical standards. Nia read it on her phone as she rode the bus downtown, sitting between a nurse and a student, both absorbed in their own mornings. The memo praised psychological safety and warned against unauthorized disclosures. Never named her. It didn't need to. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Evan, legal is furious. Unknown, you just burned every bridge. Lena, I'm with you. Whatever comes. At 9:30, a number she didn't recognize called. She answered, heart thudding. Ms. Carter, a woman said. This is Dana Keller. I'm a reporter. I've reviewed the public filings connected to your submission. Nia swallowed. I haven't spoken to the press. I know, Dana said. I'm calling because your documents are unusually thorough. Unusually thorough. Nia almost laughed. I'm not interested in spectacle, Nia said carefully. Neither am I, Dana replied. I'm interested in patterns. Nia closed her eyes. Then you're calling the right person. By noon, Havenport's parking lot filled with unfamiliar cars. Lawyers. Consultants. Men in suits who didn't know where the bathrooms were yet. Inside, Elena texted updates in clipped bursts. Char asked if I'd signed anything. They moved Harold off compliance reviews. People are whispering. Harold called an hour later. His voice sounded older. They told me I'm being reassigned. I'm sorry, Nia said. Don't be, he replied. This is the cleanest my conscience has felt in years. The threats came next. Emails from burner addresses. Comments on anonymous boards. A voicemail left at midnight. Breathing, then a click. Nia saved everything. Her sister called voice tight. Mom saw something online. I know, Nia said softly. Are you safe? Nia glanced at the door, the deadbolt, the chain. I think so. That afternoon, Malcolm asked her to meet him in a neutral space. A cafe near the river, glass and noise and witnesses. They're trying to control the frame, Malcolm said, stirring his coffee. Internal memo, friendly leaks, character questions. They're saying I'm unstable, Nia said. Malcolm nodded. They always do. I didn't want to be a symbol. You aren't, he said. You're a record. She exhaled, a sound halfway to relief. Across town, Whitlock convened a call with his inner circle. We emphasize process, he said. We express concern for her well-being. And the regulator? Someone asked. We cooperate fully, Whitlock replied. And we remind the board of the cost of chaos. Back at her apartment, Nia sat with Elena, both laptops open. Dana wants on-the-record confirmation, Elena said. Nia hesitated. I'll speak, but only to the documents. That's enough, Elena said. The interview was precise. Logs. No adjectives. Dana didn't push for emotion. When it published the next morning, the headline wasn't explosive. Internal records show executive override and retaliation claims at Havenport. The comments, however, were. Some thanked Nia. Others questioned her motives. A few used words that felt like old knives. At Havenport, the staff reaction shifted from whispers to meetings. Teams compared notes. Patterns surfaced. Stories lined up. Janine texted, "The room feels different." Regulators requested additional materials. Investors called for answers. The board scheduled an emergency session. Whitlock's phone buzzed with alerts he couldn't spin away. That night, Nia stood at her window. City lights scattered like uncertain constellations. The fear was still there, sharp, insistent, but beneath it ran something steadier. She wasn't invisible anymore. Her phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number. This didn't have to be public. Nia typed back, hands calm. It didn't have to be hidden. She set the phone down, turned off the light, and let the darkness settle. The whistle had been blown. Now the sound belonged to everyone. The newsroom lights flickered across Nia's laptop as she scrolled through the published story again. Dana Keller's byline stared back, crisp and factual. No sensationalism. Just the evidence she had painstakingly documented. The override logs, the timestamps, the internal emails, and the retaliation complaint. The city outside hummed, indifferent. But inside Nia's apartment, the air vibrated with tension. Her phone buzzed incessantly. Whispers of hope, warnings, questions from colleagues, and half-hearted congratulations from friends who didn't understand the full cost. Elena leaned over, eyes scanning the screen. It's spreading faster than we expected. Not fast enough, Nia said. They're still pretending this is just about me. Harold shuffled papers beside them. Patterns don't lie. Once people see it, they can't unsee it. That's what changes things. Across town, Havenport's executive floor was alive with urgent chatter. Board members whispered in clusters. Director offices glowing with muted arguments. Whitlock paced behind his desk, phone to his ear. Contain the narrative, he barked. Spin it as a procedural misunderstanding. Keep the team aligned. Janine Wallace ignored the calls. She was in her office, reviewing the full audit trail. She leaned back, realizing that the documents didn't just show Nia's experience. They revealed a systemic failure. Overrides weren't occasional. Policies were selectively enforced. Employees who questioned authority were isolated. The pattern was undeniable. Malcolm Reed gathered the directors in the boardroom. We can no longer pretend the system worked as intended, he said, voice steady. The logs, the emails, the timeline, these aren't anomalies. This is repeated, structured behavior. A director hesitated. Are you saying Whitlock acted intentionally? Malcolm's gaze didn't waver. The intent matters less than the effect. Risk was ignored. Controls were bypassed. Employees were threatened for following protocol. That is a fact. Whitlock's office door closed with a muted click. He leaned back, jaw tight, scanning the room through the glass wall. He had expected to control the narrative, to downplay the facts, to isolate Nia. But the evidence was out of his hands now. The story wasn't hers alone anymore. It belonged to everyone who had seen the system fail. Meanwhile, employees began to speak. Small clusters in the break rooms, quiet emails to HR, shared screenshots of unusual approvals and hidden emails. Whispers built to murmurs. Murmurs became calls for transparency. Staff who had been afraid of retaliation realized they were not alone. Nia's courage created a network, a ripple effect that Whitlock could not control. Downstairs, Elena and Harold watched as regulators requested supplemental evidence. The flow of information was deliberate, documented, unassailable. Nia had ensured that. Every screenshot, every log, every timestamp had been cross-referenced. Every email was backed up with metadata. She had built a fortress of facts. Nia's phone buzzed again. Malcolm's name flashed. "They're convening another session," he said. "Tonight. Emergency. Will it matter?" Nia asked, voice low. "It will," Malcolm said. "Some things are irreversible once daylight hits." The boardroom was tense. Directors murmured, flipping through printouts, comparing their recollections with the new audit reports. Janine pointed to a pattern of override approvals. "Look here," she said. "Every instance aligns with the CEO's directives. Every time someone questioned it, they were removed or reprimanded." A junior director whispered, This is systemic." Malcolm nodded. "Exactly. And we cannot shield it behind authority any longer. Either the board acts, or the company will be held accountable externally." Whitlock finally entered, smile in place but eyes wary. "Good evening, everyone," he said. "I trust you've had a chance to review the situation." Janine spoke first. "We've seen the evidence. We understand now that this is not about a single incident. It's about repeated misuse of executive authority and retaliatory behavior against employees who follow protocol." Whitlock's smile faltered. "I assure you, these actions were never malicious." Malcolm cut him off. "Intent is irrelevant. The effect was systematic abuse. Control of information, suppression of employees, retaliation, all documented. The pattern cannot be ignored." Whitlock's phone buzzed. His assistant whispered, pointing to an incoming call. Whitlock ignored it, but tension was visible in the stiff set of his shoulders. The board voted, quietly, deliberately. Independent investigation with full authority. No settlement, no internal hush. Every director except Whitlock's allies agreed. The decision was clear. Accountability would happen. Downstairs, Nia exhaled. Her phone buzzed with congratulations from colleagues, strangers, and allies. She felt the weight of months pressing down, and for a moment allowed herself relief. But even in victory, the cost was clear. She thought of every sleepless night, every threat, every moment of self-doubt. This wasn't a story of triumph yet. It was the beginning of structural accountability. Whitlock's control had faltered, but Nia had endured the personal cost of exposure. Malcolm appeared via video call, eyes serious but resolute. "You did this," he said. "Your work made the pattern undeniable. The company will change because of it." "I'm not done yet," Nia said. "You never are," Malcolm replied. "But know this, today the pattern breaks. And it won't be rebuilt so easily." Outside, Havenport employees whispered, shared screenshots, discussed meetings, and prepared for inquiries. Nia's story had ignited awareness. The chain reaction was in motion, unstoppable, and rooted in truth. Nia sat back, letting her mind slow for a moment. The system had failed, the pattern had existed for too long, but it was no longer invisible. She had taken the risk. She had become the witness. And now, everyone else could see what had been happening all along. She looked at her scarf, burnt orange, draped over her chair. The symbol of her visibility, of the moment she was singled out, of everything she had endured. She touched it lightly, a reminder that courage carried its own weight, and that weight could reshape structures, even ones as entrenched as Havenport systems. The pattern had broken. But the work, the oversight, and the reckoning were only beginning. And Nia knew she would face it fully awake. The hearing room smelled of polished wood and anxiety. Lawyers in tailored suits arranged their papers like soldiers. Cameras hummed softly in corners, capturing the moment that would define more than a career. It would define accountability. Nia entered, head high, scarf bright against her dark coat. She felt the weight of months pressing into her shoulders, but also a strange clarity. Every log, every timestamp, every email she had painstakingly gathered was in her folder. This time, the evidence would speak louder than words. "Ms. Carter," the presiding regulator said, voice neutral but firm. "You may present your testimony." Nia stepped forward, fingers brushing the folder's edge. "Thank you. I will focus on documented events, their sequence, and the systemic issues they reveal." Her voice was calm, deliberate. No anger, just facts. The lawyer representing Whitlock rose, adjusting glasses. "Ms. Carter, you claim that the CEO personally orchestrated a series of policy bypasses. How can you be certain it wasn't a systemic error, unrelated to his office?" Nia met his gaze evenly. Every override aligns with timestamps from his office, often immediately following his directives. Emails, memos, internal communications, they trace back to him. This is not error. It is deliberate control. She placed the first document on the stand. The auditor verified its authenticity. One by one, logs, screenshots, and internal emails were displayed. Each piece a chain link, connecting the CEO's office to breaches, suppression of employee actions, and retaliation against those who raised concerns. "Ms. Carter," the lawyer pressed, "you say employees were threatened. Can you give specific examples?" "Yes," Nia replied. "Security was ordered to remove me from a floor I was authorized to be on, publicly, in front of the board. HR filed a complaint against me minutes after I revealed the override. My colleagues were warned indirectly, pressured to distance themselves. Each instance is documented." A murmur moved through the room. Even the regulators leaned forward. The lawyer tried to hide a twitch of frustration. Whitlock, seated across the table, maintained a mask of calm. Nia could feel the tension, the unsteady grasp of power that had always underpinned his control. She continued, walking the room through her timeline. The vendor breach, the dashboard's creation, the town hall incident, and the immediate retaliation. Every step reinforced the pattern, every date aligned. There was no space for ambiguity. One of the regulators raised a hand. "Ms. Carter, has this affected you personally?" "Yes," she said, keeping her composure. "Emotionally, professionally. I faced threats, isolation, and attempts to undermine my credibility. But my goal here is to present the systemic failure, not personal grievances." Whitlock's lawyer interjected again. Ms. Carter's tone suggests animosity. Is it possible her interpretation is biased? Nia's eyes met the lawyer's steadily. Bias would distort facts. Facts remain verifiable. The override logs, emails, and timestamps do not lie. The regulators nodded, taking notes. Whitlock's smile flickered, a micro-expression Nia had learned to notice. Control slipping through invisible fingers. Harold and Elena were called next. Each corroborated Nia's account. Bypasses, selective enforcement, and the retaliation pattern. The evidence wasn't just hers anymore. It was collective, undeniable. The hearing moved into questioning of Whitlock himself. He was asked about the override, about directives, about the complaint against Nia. His answers were rehearsed, careful, hedged. Every denial left a gap, every misstatement amplified by Nia's documented evidence. Regulators leaned in. "Mr. Whitlock, these documents show alignment between directives from your office and policy bypasses. How do you explain that?" Whitlock hesitated. "The tools exist to facilitate flexibility. Any oversight was incidental, not intentional. Malcolm Reed, present as a board witness, shook his head subtly. The regulators weren't convinced. Intent had become secondary. Effect was now visible. By mid-afternoon, the room was tense but clear. The system of abuse, retaliation, and suppression was visible, undeniable. The chain of command could no longer shield itself. Witnesses spoke, documents displayed, corroborations lined up. Whitlock's authority no longer created invisibility. It highlighted the consequences of misused power. Nia took a moment during a short recess to breathe. Her hand shook slightly, but she held onto the folder like a shield and a sword. Months of fear, uncertainty, and surveillance coalesced into this clarity. She had survived scrutiny, threats, and isolation to reach this point. When the hearing resumed, the regulators requested additional documentation to trace the full scope of policy bypasses. Whitlock's legal team scrambled to provide partial records, but Nia's files were complete, cross-referenced, and corroborated. His office could not match the depth or precision of the evidence. Toward evening, the presiding regulator addressed the room. The patterns presented are clear. There is sufficient evidence to demonstrate both deliberate misuse of executive authority and retaliation against employees who report concerns. The matter will proceed to enforcement review and corporate compliance intervention. A silent, collective exhale filled the room. Nia's hands, resting on the folder, relaxed slightly. She had survived the hearing. Not unscathed, not unshaken, but armed with truth and an unassailable record. Whitlock remained seated, mask intact but eyes wary. The power he had wielded with near invisibility was now constrained by visibility. Evidence, accountability, and law had replaced fear, coercion, and isolation. Nia gathered her belongings. Elena and Harold flanked her. They left the room quietly, the city lights spilling into the hallway. Outside, reporters waited, pens poised, cameras blinking. Nia didn't speak yet. The story would unfold carefully, legally, and deliberately. Her phone buzzed once. Malcolm's name appeared. She answered. "They're reviewing next steps," he said. "You were precise, calm, and thorough. The record is unassailable." Nia allowed herself a small smile. "It doesn't erase what happened." "No," Malcolm agreed. "But it ensures it cannot happen the same way again." She looked out at the city, lights flickering across office towers. Whitlock's influence had been exposed. His system's failures were visible. The cost had been personal, heavy, and real, but the ripple she had started was unstoppable. Tonight, Nia Carter was not just an employee. She was a witness, a recorder, and a catalyst. And for the first time in months, she allowed herself to breathe, not free of fear, but confident in the power of truth. Whitlock stared at the boardroom door like a man facing an unexpected storm. He had rehearsed control for 12 years. Every handshake, every smile, every narrative carefully curated. But today, none of it mattered. Not the polished speeches, not the carefully leaked memos, not the whispers of loyalty from hesitant directors. The independent investigation had concluded. The evidence was undeniable. Executive overrides misused, internal controls bypassed, retaliation against staff documented, patterns confirmed. For the first time, the board saw beyond charisma and authority. They saw behavior, and they saw consequences. Malcolm Reed leaned back in his chair, calm but resolute. "The board has decided," he said. "Mr. Whitlock, effective immediately, you are relieved of your duties as CEO. An interim leadership team will oversee operations until further notice. Full regulatory cooperation will follow." Whitlock's smile faltered. This is premature." "Not premature," Malcolm said evenly. "Necessary." Janine Wallace stepped forward. "Your oversight failed repeatedly. Employees were punished for following protocol, systems were manipulated, and compliance was ignored. This is not about one individual. It's about accountability." Whitlock's jaw tightened. He scanned the room, noting the shift in posture, the slight hesitation in directors who had once nodded obediently. They no longer nodded. They observed. The board's complacency had fractured. Outside the room, Nia Carter sat quietly in the observation lounge. She had been called in to witness the announcement. Her presence a reminder that the story was not abstract. She was real. She was present. And she had survived the scrutiny, the threats, and the isolation. Her phone buzzed with notifications. Colleagues applauding quietly in Slack threads, anonymous tips from staff corroborating her experience, messages of support from regulators and friends. The ripple of her actions had spread farther than she could have anticipated. Whitlock's legal team spoke quietly to each other, muttering about damages, reputations, and potential appeals. But the board was unyielding. The narrative could no longer be controlled by fear or charm. The facts had taken precedence. Malcolm approached Nia after the board vote was finalized. "You did this," he said, voice low but firm. "Your documentation, your persistence. This is why we could act." Nia shook her head. "I didn't do this alone. Lena, Harold, Janine. People who saw the truth but feared speaking up." Malcolm nodded. "And they were strengthened by your courage. But make no mistake, Whitlock underestimated the resolve of those who value truth over comfort. That was his mistake." Meanwhile, across the city, Whitlock's office was packed. Investors had demanded explanations, press inquiries were mounting, and internal communications were being audited in real time. The power he had assumed was unassailable now exposed him to scrutiny he had never anticipated. For Nia, the moment was bittersweet. She had achieved accountability, but the cost had been real. Weeks of sleepless nights, emotional exhaustion, and the constant anxiety of threats and surveillance. She had survived, but scars remained. Her phone buzzed with a message from her sister. "Mom's proud of you, but she's worried about what this has done to you." Nia typed back slowly. "I'm okay. I'm stronger than they thought." The evening after the board vote, she returned to the lobby where the first humiliation had occurred. The moment the CEO had ordered security to remove her from the floor, the moment her orange scarf had become a target. The space was quiet now, the fluorescent lights humming above. She ran her fingers along the edge of the reception desk, remembering the shame, the fear, and the disbelief. Her reflection in the glass felt different, stronger, visible, and yet marked by experience. The orange scarf was a badge now, not a target, a reminder of the courage it took to survive the storm of institutional neglect and deliberate abuse. Malcolm appeared at the lobby entrance. "A new role has been offered," he said. "Real authority this time. You can shape operations without obstruction." Nia studied him, weighing the choice. The cost of staying was still present, the memories, the fear, the systemic challenges. But the opportunity to effect change, to protect others from what she had endured, was tangible. "I'll think about it," she said finally. "I need to process this. All of it." Malcolm nodded. "Fair. But know this, you have already changed the company. Your actions have forced accountability where none existed. The culture is shifting because of you." Whitlock's downfall was now public. Media coverage was careful but damning. Executives removed, regulatory investigations underway, staff reporting protection. The image of a powerful CEO, untouchable for years, dismantled by the very systems he had manipulated. Nia felt a surge of quiet satisfaction. Justice had been served, not as spectacle, but as consequence. Whitlock's networks of influence, his manipulation of protocols, his silencing of employees, all rendered impotent by diligence, courage, and documentation. And yet, the victory was tempered by reality. There would be lingering trauma, colleagues who had been intimidated into silence, and the reminder that power could corrupt subtly, persistently, and quietly. Nia had seen it, endured it, and survived it, but she would carry the awareness of it forward. The lobby lights flickered, reflections shifting across polished surfaces. Nia adjusted the scarf, letting it drape naturally. She was ready, not for applause, not for revenge, but for a world where accountability was visible, and the system she helped protect could now sustain integrity. Whitlock had missed the crucial element he never anticipated: resilience paired with meticulous documentation. Visibility had broken the pattern, truth had outpaced authority, and those who had once feared reprisal could now step forward. Nia stepped out into the street, lights of the city reflecting against wet asphalt. She inhaled deeply. The storm was over. The pattern was broken. But the work, the vigilance, and the responsibility, those remained. She smiled faintly, a quiet acknowledgement to herself. One battle had ended. The fight for integrity, fairness, and systemic accountability was ongoing, but for the first time she felt she had the tools to see it through. Whitlock had miscalculated. And in that miscalculation, Nia had claimed a hard-won truth. The city was quiet in the early morning, the streets washed in pale light. Nia Carter stood by the glass of her apartment window, looking down at the headquarters of Havenport Systems. The building no longer loomed like an untouchable fortress. It had been rearranged in her mind, stripped of invincibility. Weeks had passed since the board removed Whitlock. Investigations were ongoing, regulators had the full audit trail, and policy reforms were underway. Employees were returning from fear-induced silence. Some whispered their gratitude. Others admitted that seeing Nia stand firm had given them courage to speak. The chain reaction she had started was still moving, invisible yet unstoppable, like a current beneath the city streets. Her phone buzzed. Malcolm Reed. "They've finalized interim leadership," he said. "Janine and Harold are overseeing operations. Staff morale is fragile but improving. Investors are cooperating. And," his voice softened, "the office wants you back." Nia stared at the phone, processing the offer. She had imagined this moment countless times, but none of her visions had included the emotional complexity, the trauma, the exhaustion, the price she had paid. "I need time," she said finally. "Take it," Malcolm replied. "But know this, you've reshaped the company already. The walls Whitlock built won't return." She hung up and looked again at the building. The lobby, once a stage of humiliation, now felt different. She remembered the first time she'd been ordered escorted out. Her scarf, the stairs, the whispered compliance of bystanders. Every detail was burned into her memory. But now the lobby symbolized resilience, documentation, and justice. She had survived the personal cost to make systemic change. Later that day, she returned to the building to meet with HR, legal, and the interim directors. They greeted her with polite smiles, cautious respect. No one pretended the past hadn't happened, but there was acknowledgement, and, most importantly, listening. Harold and Elena were already there. Harold gave her a small nod, the unspoken recognition of shared struggle. Elena handed her a folder. "New policies," she said, "and templates for reporting issues safely. We built safeguards this time." Nia opened the folder. Every policy revision, procedural checkpoint, and compliance measure reflected months of meticulous work. Every loophole Whitlock had exploited had been addressed. It was more than a system, it was a monument to vigilance. A meeting was scheduled with the staff. Nia walked into the conference room where her colleagues gathered, faces uncertain. She didn't speak immediately. She let the silence settle, letting her presence convey strength without pretense. Then she began. "I know this has been a difficult time. Some of you were silenced, some of you watched, some of you were afraid. Today that ends. We are implementing safeguards. We are holding people accountable. And we are rebuilding trust, not just in policy, but in each other." Whispers rippled. One colleague said, "We're glad you're back." Another nodded. "It feels like someone finally sees us." Nia smiled faintly. "I'm not here to erase the past, only to ensure it doesn't repeat. We will be transparent and we will be vigilant. And yes, mistakes will happen. But they will be visible, accountable, and addressed." Later she walked the corridors. Security badges reactivated. Office doors unlocked. Every gesture was small, but each one symbolized reclamation, not just of space but of dignity. Her phone buzzed with messages of support from friends and family. Her mother's text read, "We're proud, but don't forget to rest." Nia typed back, "I'll try. But I can't undo what's been done. I can only move forward." By evening, the building hummed with the ordinary rhythm of work. Employees spoke more freely, collaboration returned, and the tension that had gripped the hallways began to ease. Systems were in place. Oversight was enforced. Whitlock was gone, but his shadow remained a reminder that accountability must be constant, not occasional. Nia stood once more by the lobby window, scarf draped casually over her shoulders. She remembered the first time she had been ordered out. The humiliation, the isolation, the fear. It all weighed heavy, but now it was tempered by clarity and resilience. She had survived the personal toll, but the world she had helped create was stronger because of it. Malcolm appeared in the lobby, walking toward her, a rare smile breaking through. "You did what no one else could," he said. "The board, the company, everyone is safer because of your persistence." "I didn't do it for safety," Nia said. "I did it because it was right. But I'll accept that it helped others." He nodded. "And it will continue to. You've set a standard. A precedent." Outside, the sun dipped behind the city skyline, reflecting off the glass towers, golden and resolute. Nia inhaled deeply. The fight for justice, for integrity was ongoing, but for the first time she felt that she had a real foothold, a system she could trust to hold power accountable. She thought of Whitlock, removed from authority, watching consequences unfold that he had never predicted. He had underestimated her. Underestimated the force of documented truth paired with resolve. He had misread resilience for compliance. That miscalculation had been fatal for his career, and emblematic for the system he had tried to control. Nia adjusted her scarf. It no longer symbolized vulnerability, but visibility, resilience, and survival. She stepped out into the street, lights reflecting on wet asphalt, a quiet affirmation that change was possible. Whitlock's fall had been the result of more than exposure. It was the result of accountability, vigilance, and courage. And Nia Carter, once silenced, humiliated, and isolated, had ensured that the cost of abusing power would no longer be invisible. The city stretched ahead, full of possibility and vigilance. The pattern had been broken. Whitlock had been removed. The company, and those within it, would never see him the same way again. But most importantly, Nia had reclaimed her space, her voice, and her power, and she would never allow it to be underestimated again.